We are gonna get shit on so
Oh,
bad for this,
yeah,
dude.
we're gonna. I
I'm
know
just like,
it's.
I don't even want to check the comments on
I
this
don't
one.
either. I don't either. It'll be great.
If you're watching this right now and you haven't hit the like button, Billy, get on it. Bug your brother. Tell him to do the same.
Okay, next one comes in from James Brooks. Tweeted at us and said, "I wonder if the pitch clock has affected Manoah more than we thought. What do you guys think?" So Alek Manoah, pitch clock. Is that why he's struggling? What do the analytics say, Scott?
So I spent almost 40 minutes, and I mean this, I truly mean this. I spent 40 minutes Googling and trying to find the average time between pitches for Alek Manoah in 2022. And I'm sure the stat is out there. And if there is some sort of
Grounds
magician,
crew, get on that. Figure
grounds
it out
crew,
for
get
us.
on that. I honestly, I would love that data because that truly will point to how much that 15 seconds between the pitch clock right now is affecting him, right? If we look at it and Alek Manoah's difference between pitches was like 15 seconds last year, then that's not the answer. And I think when you look at Alek Manoah and you listen to some of these much smarter baseball analysts than Adam and I, a lot of it has to do where he's landing with his front foot and following through in his delivery. This seems to be the general consensus when you're talking to guys like Joe Siddall, right? Friend of the show, Jamie Campbell brought it up. However, it does make sense that this is something that has changed from last year. And Adam and I have talked about this since the opening day of the season. Alek Manoah has not looked comfortable on the mound. Whether it's a confidence thing, whether this is his first bump in the road in his career, or whether it truly is that he's feeling rushed and maybe he's a little out of breath more than he's used to. He doesn't have the option of, after a couple pitches, wandering around the mound or, Kirky taking his sweet time, getting the ball out of his glove to throw it back. So, yeah, maybe he is rushed and maybe that is contributing to him not following through with his delivery, which would make sense, right? You're rushing, your delivery's off. Maybe it's all one thing together.
I would go so far as to say, unless his average time between pitches is well under 15, that it would be a factor. Again, I don't know how much of a factor. Let's just assign a factor of 0.86 because analytics. Why not? um,
Not how it works, but I love this. Yes.
oh my God. No, but I'm just saying for especially maybe again, I don't know if a young pitcher would be more affected or a veteran who's set in his ways like Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer's come out and said he's been more affected by the pitch clock than he anticipated. But I mean, if Alek Manoah's time between pitches last year is 19 seconds, then obviously he's having to pick up the pace, right? That's going to have an impact.
Substantially.
Sure. But even if his time between pitches is like 13 or 14 on average, that means that sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 19, right? So there are going to be for sure instances in which he would have had more time and he now is rushed. Also, how much does that just affect the mentality of like, just in the back of your mind, like, I got to keep up the pace here? It's just one more thing to consider. And that might just be enough. So I don't think necessarily seeing like, oh, his average time between pitches was only 11 seconds last year, so that's not it. And I don't remember Alek Manoah feeling like a particularly quick pitcher.
Slow pitcher.
I mean,
he didn't.
He's not Rafael Dolis out there, but also he's not chop chop, let's get at it, pitter patter. Like, come on.
No, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, that's probably a factor. I don't know if it's any more of an impact on his pitching other than it is just like you add one more thing to consider to anybody, no matter what that thing is, it's going to impact performance, right? We speculate about guys going through a divorce. That's just something. That's one more thing on the back of their brain that they're considering all day long.
And
So,
there is a psychology to a clock ticking down too that is interesting, right? Because it does make you feel more rushed. Whether the truth is even if Alek Manoah wasn't, his average time between pitches wasn't over that 15 seconds, it just being in his head and watching that second tick down to 0, it absolutely is going to make you feel rushed.
Yeah. I mean, we've all sat through exams in high school or university or grade school where it's like, hey, you have 60 minutes for this physics test. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So you're like, okay, I don't want to run out before I get all these questions done. And then you get every question done and you have like 17 minutes left. And then you're like,
exactly.
oh, now I got to go
Like
back and double check everything because I rushed.
it's almost like had they told you on average it takes you 45 minutes to do a test. You have 60 minutes. But it's just
Well,
that having that time limit, man. It's just like it gets in your head. You're like, ah.
here's a funny behind the scenes. I mean, everybody who follows us on Patreon is well aware of this. But if Scott and I set a time for like 9 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna do an interview or we're gonna do whatever. We're gonna do a podcast at 9 a.m. And then Scott will text me at like 7:30 and he'll be like, "Hey, I'm up and I'm awake and if you're ready to go, we can start early if you want." And then all of a sudden, now there's like I feel a pressure, a responsibility to you, Scott, where I'm like, "Oh, Scott's ready. I better get going." So I'm like rushing through making my coffee and now all of a sudden I'm not only not getting ready in time for the 9 o'clock that we had
Yeah.
initially set, I'm actually like 20 minutes behind somehow
And vice
because
versa. This has happened to both of us
so
numerous
many
times where
times.
one of us reaches out, we're like, we could go early, and the other one's like, oh no.
So there you go. I mean, the psychology of the clock is a real thing. I'm sure anybody watching this can relate to anecdotes like that in their real life where they're like, oh, yeah, whenever my wife says, hey, make sure you get that yard cleaned up by 4 o'clock, it just
Before I get
gives
home
me a
from
little bit of
work.
anxiety or whatever. Right. And
Yeah.
whatever. Anyways, yeah, Alek Manoah. I don't know what's going on there, bud. It's
Pitch
something
clock
is off.
is something that could be contributing though. Absolutely.